The tale starts with a young boy named Kazuya. He encounters a thug brandishing a knife, menacing a group of girls. Kazuya charges at him, knocking him to the ground, but suffers a stab wound that leads to his demise. He awakens in the form of a small boy and feels bewildered when he sees his reflection in the mirror. But before we continue, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, because besides this anime, there will be many other interesting stories here. It becomes clear that he has been in slumber for an entire week, prompting his mother, Sarah, to check on him, believing he might be hungry. She instructs the maid, Sylvia, to bring him some soup. They leave him in his room, advising him to rest, and Kazuya understands that he has been reincarnated into a different realm. He surveys his environment, trying to grasp the nature of the world he finds himself in. Sylvia arrives with the soup, feeding him before attempting to tuck him into bed. As she answers his queries, he discovers that he is a 3-year-old boy named Cain. He is the third son of a prestigious nobleman named Garm, who commands an army dedicated to safeguarding the kingdom of Esfort from external threats. Cain feels a surge of excitement. He learns that he now resides in a world where adventurers wield swords and harness magic to vanquish monsters. Eager to master magic, he is informed by Sylvia that he must first learn to write. Thus, he begins his studies, determined to thrive in this new world. Eventually, his family is astonished to discover that he has already acquired the skills to read and write. His sister, Rain, mentions that he can even perform arithmetic, leading them to believe he is a prodigy. However, he is merely a high school student trapped in the body of a 3-year-old. They speculate about his newfound enthusiasm for learning, noting that he seems like a different person, and Cain explains that he wishes to learn everything he can about his surroundings. Garm supports his quest for knowledge, stating it will aid him in becoming a successful individual, allowing him access to books on magic and history. Sarah is pleased to see his interest in magic but believes he is too young to practice it, suggesting he should focus on studying for the time being. Cain, however, realizes that he can already utilize magic. Though he struggles to control it, he makes an effort to conceal it from those around him. Rain notices his interest in the world beyond, so she takes the time to educate him on the kingdom's 300-year history and the various races that inhabit it. 2 years pass, and the day of Cain's baptism arrives as they travel by carriage to the venue. Cain is thrilled to see the outside world, asking Rain to display her status after completing the ritual. Rain opens her status window, revealing that she can manipulate 3 types of elemental magic. Sarah discloses that Rain received a level 2 blessing from the god of magic, which is advantageous as it dictates the amount of magic required to activate a spell and influences skills as well. They explain that blessings can reach up to level 5 and are bestowed by one of the 7 pillar gods revered in their kingdom's faith. Upon arriving at the venue, they kneel before the statues of the 7 gods, and the priest begins the ceremony, beseeching the gods to guide Cain on his destined path. A brilliant light fills the area, and Cain is instantly transported to the realm of the gods. He is astonished to learn that the gods have awaited this moment, addressing him as Kazuya. The god of creation, Xenum, introduces himself as Cain contemplates his unusual appearance, but Xenum, being a deity, perceives Cain's thoughts. The god of death and rebirth, Rime, reveals that Cain's demise was unforeseen. Had he not intervened, the thug would have stumbled and been apprehended. This realization makes Cain feel sorrowful, knowing he died for no reason. However, the god of earth was touched by Cain's good deeds, leading to his reincarnation in this new realm. Rime expresses regret for Cain remembering his past life at the age of 3, yet Cain reassures her that it has been beneficial, enabling him to write and utilize magic while enjoying life with his new family. The god of magic takes a liking to Cain, granting him her blessing. Following suit, Xenum blesses him, and the god of war bestows upon him blessings alongside skills in swordsmanship and martial arts. The god of technology also offers his blessing, encouraging Cain to apply the knowledge from his past life to advance in this new world. The god of commerce grants him skills related to judgment and an item box, while the god of earth provides him with unique skills for his return. Xenum laughs as he sends Cain back, blessed by all the gods, while the priest comments that it is the first time he has seen the statue shine so brightly. Garm wishes to see Cain's status window, thinking he must have received multiple blessings, but Cain hesitates to reveal it, fearing it could lead to complications. Feigning a stomachache, he escapes to check his status window, only to be taken aback when he sees that all his magic, blessings, and skills are at level 10. Cain believed the maximum level was 5, prompting him to ponder what the gods were thinking when they endowed him with their blessings. Determined to keep this secret, he soon realizes Xenom has granted him the ability to hide his status. Later, at the dining table with his family, they discuss the brilliance of the baptism ceremony's light. Garm asks Cain about his status, and Cain reveals it, thinking he has concealed it well, but they are still astonished by the figures, particularly his magical aptitude. Even palace mages cannot compare to that number. Garm asserts that with his skills, he will thrive regardless of the profession he chooses, cautioning Cain to never disclose his status to anyone, as it may make him appear as a threat to the kingdom. Returning to his room, Cain contemplates what constitutes average stats. He discovers a book on summoning magic and decides to go outside to summon a cute creature, but instead ends up conjuring a demon. The demon begins attacking his sister, who is passing by, prompting him to retaliate with a fire spell. However, the demon grabs him, and he uses a return spell to banish it back. He collapses, unconscious, but eventually wakes to see his sister smiling, grateful for his efforts. Later, Cain is introduced to a crowd during his debut, where he proclaims his aspiration to become an adventurer and protect everyone. Garm informs him that he must continue his studies to achieve this goal, arranging for a tutor to assist him. We see him reading in his room, wondering what his tutor will be like. His tutors arrive. One of them, Millie, nervously introduces herself, while the other, Nina, gives a brief introduction. Millie chides her for being rude to nobles. However, Cain reassures them that formality is unnecessary since they are his tutors, which eases their tension. Garm expects them to train Cain for 3 years, and they promptly commence his education. At the training grounds, Millie instructs him to practice some swings, but is taken aback by his exceptional skill. Nina remarks that Cain may surpass Millie, prompting her to challenge him to a sparring match. As he prepares to leave, Gizzard detains him, informing him that he will have an audience with the king. Gizzard escorts him to the king's hall, where Cain meets the monarch. After paying his respects, the king recounts Cain's heroics in saving the carriage from the orc attack. The king praises his bravery, asserting that without him, the girls would not have survived, and bestows upon Cain the title of Baron, along with his own mansion. A noble named Corgino interjects, arguing that Cain is too young to hold such a title. The king counters that Corgino has not achieved the same feats Cain has, prompting him to back down. Reluctantly, Cain accepts the Baron title, and the king concludes the audience, instructing him to head backstage. In a private room with his father, Garm remarks that Cain is the first among his sons to achieve such a title. The king joins them, bowing to Cain in gratitude for saving his daughter. Feeling uncomfortable in this position, Cain urges them to rise, but the king insists on thanking him as a father would. He tells Cain that, given his extraordinary abilities in both magic and swordsmanship, and with the blessings of the gods, the kingdom cannot afford to neglect such a talented youth. Consequently, he proposes that Cain marry Princess Telestia, while the Duke also wishes for Cain to wed his daughter. Stunned, Cain finds the idea overwhelming, but the girls are delighted, as the king explains that he will now be engaged to both because he has shared a room with them. However, it becomes clear that this is part of their plan to ensure Cain remains in the kingdom. Under pressure, Cain eventually consents to marry both daughters. In the capital's church, he prays to the gods, seeking guidance and hoping to enter their realm once more. He inquires about his stats, and Xenom confesses that his abilities are remarkable, suggesting he may be the most powerful human alive, and asks if Cain desires to become a demigod. However, he warns Cain of the limitations he will face alone and advises him not to test those boundaries. Xenom mentions that there isn't much excitement in Cain's current life and encourages him to utilize his knowledge from the previous world to innovate. Cain contemplates introducing something that doesn't exist in this world, and Xenom supports his idea. Upon returning, Cain encounters a cat girl named Parma, who informs him that she is training at her uncle Tamani's shop. Cain visits the shop, impressed by the diverse array of goods. He discusses his idea with Tamani's, outlining the item's details and design. Tamani's appreciates the concept and believes he can produce it affordably. Cain requests a prototype, giving him a gold coin for the materials, considering it an upfront investment. Tamani's accepts the challenge, assuring Cain of his utmost effort. After some time, Tamani's presents the prototype. Cain admires it, engaging Parma in a game to showcase its functionality. Tamani's grows excited, predicting the game will be a hit. Cain suggests creating a more elaborate version for nobles, convinced they will prefer a fancier model. He encourages Tamani's to mass-produce the product, providing him with the necessary funds. Tamani's is taken aback, bowing to Cain as he pledges to do his utmost. They take the prototype to the altar, swearing an oath to the god of commerce to fulfill their end of the agreement, causing the prototype to vanish as it is accepted. Consequently, no one will be able to create a similar product for 3 years. Cain urges them to begin selling the item next month, instructing Tamani's to prepare an extravagant one for the royal family. Afterward, he rushes home, receiving word that the debut is imminent, prompting him to hurry and get ready with his parents. Garm forewarns Cain to expect significant attention, especially after being elevated to Baron, advising him to be cautious of parents eager to introduce their daughters. Upon arrival at the venue, the royal family makes their grand entrance. The king delivers a speech about the upcoming generation. Cain approaches the king with his family, presenting the game he developed with Tamani's. The king expresses interest, wishing to discuss it with him after the ceremony. Garm, unaware of Cain's game development, is informed by Cain that he aims to find alternative income sources to maintain the mansion. His parents encourage him to engage with the other children. Cain sits with Silk, who flirts with him and begins teasing him. However, Corgino's son, Habit, interrupts. He compliments Silk, expecting her to respond in kind, but she merely greets him quietly. One of Habit's friends demands Cain show respect, leading him to introduce himself as Baron Cain. Believing he is merely a baron's son, they start to look down on him. Habit assumes Cain hails from a lowly background, threatening to have his friends beat him if he does not apologize for his perceived rudeness. However, Cain points out that it is actually Habit being impolite. They step outside, where Habit challenges him to a fight. He boasts that his friends possess God's blessings and can wield magic. The first challenger steps forward, attempting to impress with a feeble fireball that Cain effortlessly evades. The next one tries to show off but only manages to launch a few weak stone projectiles. As they prepare to attack again, Silk grows irritated and informs them that Cain is not simply the son of a baron, he is the baron himself. She recounts Cain's impressive feats, ordering them to bow, and they comply, begging for his forgiveness. As they exit the scene, Silk realizes Cain has a mischievous side, having let the situation linger for entertainment even though he knew the children were mistaken. However, she promises to keep it secret from Telestia if Cain agrees to a date with her. At that moment, Telestia arrives, inquiring about the commotion, but Silk merely claims they are planning to go on a date. Telestia grows jealous, prompting Cain to assure her he will also go on a date with her. The king interrupts, summoning Cain for their meeting, where they play the game Cain developed. The king enjoys it, wishing to keep it exclusive to them, but Cain reveals his intention to release it to the public. The Duke is present, reminding Cain to maintain the secrecy of his engagement with their daughters while cautioning him to be mindful during his date. The next day, Cain receives the deed and key to his new mansion. Upon arrival, he is dismayed to find it in a state of disrepair. As he steps inside, the lights fail to work, prompting him to use magic to illuminate his surroundings. He surveys the rooms, discovering they are filthy and devoid of furniture. Undeterred, he utilizes his magic to instantly clean and renovate the entire mansion. After his labor, the mansion looks brand new. A visitor arrives, revealing himself to be Sylvia, his maid, who is thrilled to be back in his service. Cain also meets his new butler, Colin. Sylvia eagerly directs the other maids to start cleaning, only to find everything immaculate, leading Cain to admit he used magic for the task. As he prepares to leave, Gizzard detains him, informing him that he will have an audience with the king. Gizzard escorts him to the king's hall, where Cain meets the monarch. After paying his respects, the king recounts Cain's heroics in saving the carriage from the orc attack. The king praises his bravery, asserting that without him, the girls would not have survived, and bestows upon Cain the title of Baron, along with his own mansion. A noble named Corgino interjects, arguing that Cain is too young to hold such a title. The king counters that Corgino has not achieved the same feats Cain has, prompting him to back down. Reluctantly, Cain accepts the Baron title, and the king concludes the audience, instructing him to head backstage. In a private room with his father, Garm remarks that Cain is the first among his sons to achieve such a title. The king joins them, bowing to Cain in gratitude for saving his daughter. Feeling uncomfortable in this position, Cain urges them to rise, but the king insists on thanking him as a father would. He tells Cain that, given his extraordinary abilities in both magic and swordsmanship, and with the blessings of the gods, the kingdom cannot afford to neglect such a talented youth. Consequently, he proposes that Cain marry Princess Telestia, while the Duke also wishes for Cain to wed his daughter. Stunned, Cain finds the idea overwhelming, but the girls are delighted, as the king explains that he will now be engaged to both because he has shared a room with them. However, it becomes clear that this is part of their plan to ensure Cain remains in the kingdom. Under pressure, Cain eventually consents to marry both daughters. We find Cain in the capital church. He prays to the gods, desiring to enter their realm once more. Cain inquires about his stats, and Xenom acknowledges that his abilities are remarkable, making him potentially the most powerful human alive. Xenom asks if Cain wishes to become a demigod. However, he cautions that there are limits to what Cain can achieve independently, urging him not to push those boundaries. Xenom informs Cain that his current world lacks excitement and suggests he utilize his past life knowledge to create something innovative. Cain contemplates introducing an item absent from this world, and Xenom supports his concept. Cain returns to his realm and encounters a cat girl named Parma, who informs him she is training at her uncle Tamani's shop. Cain visits the shop, impressed by the variety of goods available. He explains the item he envisions, sketching it out and detailing its functions. Tamani's finds the idea appealing and believes he could produce it affordably. Cain requests a prototype, giving Tamani's a gold coin to cover costs, framing it as an initial investment. Tamani's accepts the challenge, assuring Cain he will do his utmost. After some time, Tamani's presents the prototype. Cain is thrilled with its design, playing a game with Parma to showcase its use. Tamani's gets excited, confident it will become popular. Cain proposes creating a deluxe version for the nobles, knowing they would prefer a fancier edition. He encourages Tamani's to mass-produce the product, providing him with the necessary funds. Tamani's is taken aback and bows to Cain, promising to give it his best effort. They take their sample to the altar, swearing to the god of commerce that they will uphold their contract, causing the prototype to vanish upon acceptance. Consequently, no one else can create the same product for 3 years. Cain instructs them to begin sales next month and asks Tamani's to prepare a lavish one for the royal family. Afterward, he rushes home, learning his debut is about to commence, so he quickly gets ready and departs with his parents. Garm warns Cain that he will attract a lot of attention due to his recent promotion to Baron, cautioning him about parents eager to introduce their daughters to him. They reach the venue, where the royal family makes their entrance. The king delivers a speech about the upcoming generation. Cain approaches the king with his family, presenting the game he developed with Tamani's. The king expresses interest, indicating he wishes to speak with Cain after the ceremony. Garm was unaware of Cain's game development, and Cain explains he needs to discover alternative income sources to maintain the mansion. His parents leave, encouraging him to interact with other children. Cain sits with Silk, who shows interest in him by teasing, but Corgino's son, Habit, interrupts. He compliments Silk, expecting her to reciprocate, but Silk simply greets him in silence. One of Habit's friends demands Cain show respect, prompting Cain to rise and introduce himself as Baron Cain. However, they assume he is just the son of a baron and begin to look down on him. Habit concludes Cain must come from a poor family since he didn't mention his last name, threatening to have his friends beat him up if he doesn't apologize for his rudeness. Cain counters that Habit is the one being impolite. They proceed outside, where Habit challenges him to a fight. He reveals his friends possess the god's blessings and can use magic. The first friend steps forward, attempting to impress with a weak fireball, which Cain easily dodges. The next friend tries to show off with feeble rock projectiles. As they prepare to attack again, Silk grows irritated and declares that Cain is not merely the son of a baron but the baron himself. She recounts his impressive achievements and orders them to bow in submission, which they do, begging for his forgiveness. Afterward, Silk realizes Cain harbors a darker side, as he prolonged the confrontation for amusement, fully aware the children were mistaken. She vows to keep this secret from Telestia if Cain agrees to go on a date with her. At that moment, Telestia arrives, curious about the commotion, but Silk merely tells her they are planning a date. Feeling jealous, Telestia asks Cain if he will also take her out. The king interrupts, summoning Cain for their meeting, where they engage in Cain's game. The king enjoys it, expressing a desire to keep it exclusive, but Cain reveals plans to make it public. The Duke is present, and they remind Cain that his engagement with their daughters is a secret, advising him to exercise caution during his dates. The next day, Cain receives the deed and key to his new mansion. Upon inspection, he discovers it is completely dilapidated. As he enters, the lights fail to work, prompting him to use magic for illumination. He explores the rooms, finding everything filthy and empty. Undeterred, he employs magic to clean and restore the entire mansion instantly. Shortly after, he is visited by Sylvia, who is thrilled to serve him again, and he meets his new butler, Colin. Eager to get to work, Sylvia instructs the other maids to begin cleaning, only for them to find everything impeccably tidy. Cain admits he used magic to clean. Colin reminds him to return to his family, and Cain recalls that his older brothers are coming to visit. We are introduced to his brothers. They express amazement at Cain's quick rise to baron and ownership of a mansion. Rain is eager to visit, but her brothers warn her that it could be haunted due to its dilapidated state. Cain reassures her that everything will be fine. When they visit his mansion, they are astonished to find it in excellent condition. Garm is baffled since the last time he visited, the mansion was falling apart, but he realizes it must be Cain's doing. They marvel at the various rooms. However, Garm comments that it lacks artwork. Cain questions the need for art, and Garm explains that nobles take great pride in decorating their mansions with paintings, armor, and even mounted monster trophies. Upon hearing this, Cain decides to display one of his defeated monsters. Suddenly, Sylvia screams, and they wonder what has happened. The maids gasp upon seeing a colossal red dragon, and Cain realizes he forgot to inform them about it. His father demands an explanation, and Cain casually states it is merely a monster he defeated. Garm is astonished, questioning when Cain vanquished it, to which Cain reveals it occurred in the forest some time ago. Garm asserts that a red dragon is considered a calamity-level monster, and even ranked adventurers would struggle against it. He mentions that the mounted red dragon would be valued at 1,000 platinum coins, leaving Cain astonished, calculating it to be worth around $100 million. They suddenly hear another scream and rush to investigate. His mother inquires about the toilet, which sprayed water unexpectedly, explaining it was unlike anything they had encountered before. Cain clarifies that he utilized magic to make it function, prompting Rain to request one for their home. Garm chastises them for overreacting about a toilet, but they urge him to try it, leading him to give it a go and find it delightful, quickly changing his mind and requesting one for himself. His father points out that their guests will also appreciate the experience, leaving Cain puzzled. Garm informs him that upon receiving a mansion, it is customary to host a debut party, causing Cain to realize he has another debut to prepare for. Later that night, Cain contemplates how to handle the situation, but Colin presents him with a list of guests to invite and necessary preparations. As he reviews the list, he spots Corgino's name and questions the need to invite him. Colin explains that as a high-ranking noble, not inviting him would be ill-advised. Cain wonders why the king isn't on the list, and Colin informs him that only high-ranking nobles can extend an invitation to him. Concerned about arranging food and beverages for the event, Cain panics when he realizes he also needs to procure gifts for all his guests. Sylvia suggests some ideas, and Cain conjures a glass using his magic. As most people are accustomed to using porcelain, he decides to distribute glasses to all his guests. He then begins to prepare the food. Utilizing a recipe from his previous life, he creates Hamburg steak, which Sylvia finds utterly delicious. She tastes his fizzy drink next and is astonished by the bubbles, prompting Cain to explain how he enchanted regular wine to create carbonation. Colin interrupts, informing Cain that the king is requesting him at the palace. The king is irate, having never received an invitation to Cain's party. It turns out that the duke has been teasing him about not getting an invite. Cain quickly comes up with an excuse, saying he intended to deliver his invitation in person but hadn't found the time until now. The king beams upon hearing this, and Cain breathes a sigh of relief. On the night of the party, Cain welcomes his guests. The duke arrives with Silk, and they are both astonished by the red dragon. Cain expresses gratitude for everyone attending and raises a toast. All are amazed by the drink. The duke comments on how the glass sparkles like treasure. The king arrives, urging everyone to relax and enjoy the festivities. After tasting the sparkling wine, he finds it utterly delightful. Next, he samples the Hamburg steak, reveling in its rich, juicy flavor, surprised by the cheese surprise hidden inside. The queen rushes out, inquiring about the toilet, dubbing it revolutionary and demanding one for the palace. The king tries it out himself and immediately insists Cain install one in the palace. He praises Cain's hospitality, receiving applause from all the nobles. Just then, Colin informs him that Corgino is approaching. Corgino arrogantly strides in, mocking the size of the house, only to be taken aback upon seeing the red dragon. He enters the dining room, looking down on everyone else. They serve him the sparkling wine, which catches him off guard, but he pretends not to enjoy it. When he tries the Hamburg steak, he calls it disgusting, yet cannot stop himself from devouring it. Demanding more sauce, he snatches it from Sylvia, prompting Cain to feel irritated by his rudeness. However, Colin advises him to remain composed. Cain has an idea, reasoning that as long as he doesn't cause a scene himself, everything should be fine. He offers Corgino the glasses as gifts, but Corgino demands Cain surrender all of them. Cain apologizes, stating that the glasses are intended as gifts for everyone, but insists he has a greater surprise in store. Corgino grows curious, but it turns out the surprise is the king. Corgino is dumbfounded at the sight, and the king chastises him for his unacceptable behavior, reminding him that as a high-ranking noble, he should set an example. Corgino flees in embarrassment, while Silk finds Cain's setup amusing. The king realizes he has been played and ends up lecturing Cain for hours. Later, Cain visits the barracks, encountering Vice Captain Gizzard. He mentions he was told he could store his monster materials there, prompting Gizzard to take him to a warehouse for storage. Cain states that the room is too small, leading Gizzard to assume he must possess something large, like the red dragon at his mansion. Cain downplays it, stating it's merely an earth dragon. However, Gizzard is equally astonished, asserting it would require a party of ranked adventurers to take down just one. They head to the courtyard where Cain reveals all the monsters stored in his item box. Gizzard cannot believe the sheer number of creatures, yet these are only D-ranked monsters. He still possesses S-ranked ones within the box after receiving excessive power from the gods. Gizzard ponders whether Cain is a hero or a disciple of the gods, but Cain insists he's just an ordinary boy, prompting Gizzard to refrain from probing further. Gizzard informs Cain that it will take some time to appraise all the monsters, and Cain states he can return whenever they are ready. As he turns to leave, Gizzard requests Cain's assistance in training the knights, expressing a desire to showcase Cain to his captain. Gizzard introduces Cain to the knights as the hero who defeated 30 orcs to save the princess. Cain wonders where the captain is, and Gizzard replies that she will likely arrive once the mock battles commence. Cain imagines the captain as a fierce warrior, but Gizzard reassures him there is no cause for worry. The mock battle begins, but one knight expresses discomfort about fighting a child. Gizzard tells the knight to let Cain take the first move for a free shot, urging him to showcase his abilities. Cain employs his boost spell. Dashing forward, he disarms the knight immediately, causing the knight to concede defeat, leaving Cain feeling he may have gone too far. He attempts to end the match, but Gizzard insists he take on all the knights simultaneously. Their battle is interrupted when Captain Tefana enters. She questions why her knights are targeting a child, hugging Cain and assuring him everything will be fine, mistakenly thinking he's just a lost child who wandered in. She demands an explanation from Gizzard. He explains that Cain is the hero who defeated 30 orcs. Tefana's demeanor shifts instantly as she expresses eagerness to meet him, challenging him to a duel. Gizzard suggests she introduce herself first. Yet she insists they will learn about each other through their swords. The knights anticipate that Cain stands no chance, as Tefana holds the title of Master Swordsman. As they prepare to fight, Cain mentions he only possesses a wooden sword, but Tefana charges at him nonetheless. She activates her boost skill, rushing toward Cain as they exchange blows. The knights are shocked to witness Cain keeping pace with the captain. Both appear evenly matched, but Cain increases his speed further. Getting behind the captain, he wins the duel, leaving Tefana emotional at the outcome and declaring her intent to marry him. Everyone is stunned, and Cain protests that he is only 10 years old and knows nothing about her. Tefana introduces herself, revealing she is the captain of the Royal Knights and an honorary viscount, daughter of the Duke from the Northern Forest. She assures him age is irrelevant since she is an elf who will live for at least 300 years, meaning her appearance will remain unchanged for a long time. Cain feels that age is not the issue. Hiding behind Gizzard, Cain argues that marriage is a significant commitment and cannot be decided so hastily, especially since he is already engaged to Telestia and Silk. Desperately, he seeks Gizzard's help, but Gizzard feigns sleep. Tefana concedes that decisions cannot be made unilaterally and instructs Gizzard to arrange an audience with the king. Cain worries that involving the king would be disastrous, yet he has no choice but to comply. During their meeting with the king, he asks why Cain has come to visit. Tefana announces her desire to marry Cain, prompting the king to inquire about the circumstances. Cain explains that he defeated Tefana in a duel, leading to her proposal. The king asks if Cain informed her about his other engagements, to which Cain admits he hasn't been able to since they are supposed to be a secret. The king explains that elves were once kidnapped and enslaved for their beauty, but their first king changed this narrative and established peace with the elves. Thus, the elf nation was welcomed and placed under the kingdom's protection, revealing that Tefana is effectively their princess. The king informs Tefana of Cain's existing engagements to Telestia and Silk. She appears disheartened by this news, but as he begins to apologize, Tefana claims it only intensifies her desire for him. The king acknowledges her feelings but insists she must write a letter to her father for permission. Tefana departs to draft her letter but pulls Cain along to continue sparring. Once they leave, the king expresses surprise at Cain's ability to defeat Tefana and wonders how he possesses such strength at a young age. Gizzard mentions Cain's response when asked if he is a disciple of the gods, prompting the prime minister to suggest they test him using a particular book. A few days later, Cain finds himself exhausted and bumps into Gizzard again, who questions his fatigue. Cain explains that Tefana has been dragging him on countless dates, which primarily consist of them fighting. Gizzard thanks Cain for helping Tefana enhance her skills, to which Cain reveals he has also attained the title of Master Swordsman. They suddenly hear Tefana's voice, prompting Cain to flee, but Gizzard insists he must see the king. Cain fears he is in trouble, but the king presents him with a book containing emperor-level magic, believed to be written by the first king. Cain examines it in awe, discovering an entirely new level of magic. The king reveals no one can decipher the text, as it is written in Japanese. Cain realizes he may have erred. He hypothesizes that the first king was also someone reincarnated from Japan, leading the king to question Cain's identity. He realizes he can no longer conceal the truth. Thus, Cain explains his reincarnation and the memories from his previous life. Garm wonders if he is truly his son, but Cain asserts that he is, citing the gods as confirmation. Everyone is astounded to hear he met the gods, and he recounts his encounter with the 7 gods during his baptism. The king is incredulous that Cain met all 7 gods, urging him to reveal his status. Cain unveils his true status window, leaving everyone shocked at the sight of his level 10 blessings and title as the chosen of the gods. The king muses that with the title of the chosen, the world would bow to Cain. However, Cain expresses his desire for things to remain as they are, relishing his current adventures and the people he has met, wishing to be treated just like before. The king agrees to this request but jokingly suggests that Cain could be king if he desired. Tefana interrupts the meeting, presenting her father's letter granting permission for her to marry Cain. She swiftly seizes Cain and drags him away, heading straight for the courtyard. Meanwhile, the king instructs everyone to maintain confidentiality regarding Cain's identity, hoping he will continue to safeguard the nation and its citizens. Later, we find Celestia and Silk reacting to the news of Cain's engagement to Tefana. Initially, they are upset but eventually come to terms with it, advising him not to accept every proposal he receives, pondering how many people they will have to share him with. Tefana bursts in, seeking Cain and wanting to share their love. The girls question Cain about his activities with her, but he is pulled away as he attempts to explain. Later, Cain examines the first king's book again and discovers a message stating that if he can read it, he must originate from another world. It recounts his experiences. The first king, Ford, a man who died in an accident, was summoned to the world in his original body. Cain is abruptly interrupted as Celestia and Silk inquire about his activities. Believing he is studying for the academy entrance exams, they request to join him, but he informs them he is too occupied. When they ask about the following day, he insists that day is even worse and quickly escapes. However, he runs into Tefana, who requests a sparring session the next day. Cain apologizes and flees from her as well. The next day marks Cain's 12th birthday, the age at which he can officially register as an adventurer. He heads straight for the guild. Upon arrival, he is impressed by the grandeur of the capital's guild. He encounters an adventurer who recognizes it is Cain's first visit, reminding him to stay cautious as he has only one life before departing. Cain feels a sense of familiarity with the adventurer. He approaches the counter, where the clerk introduces herself as Tia. Cain asks to register as an adventurer, and she hands him a form to fill out. As he completes it, he wonders if he should mention his status as a baron but decides against it, thinking it irrelevant. After finishing, Tia instructs him to place a drop of his blood on a crystal to register for his guild card. She informs him he will start at G rank and reflects on his tutors, who are D rank. As Tia explains further, some adventurers interrupt, telling her to stop wasting time on the child. One man insists Cain return to his mother, attempting to shove him away, but Cain skillfully dodges. His friend also tries to attack but meets the same fate. Cain turns the situation against them, and when the man prepares to draw his sword, the red-haired adventurer from earlier appears, and the man recognizes him as Claude from the Ice Flame party. Claude inquires if Cain desires a fight, causing the others to flee in fear. Cain thanks Claude for his assistance, and Claude notices Cain's strength, having observed how he evaded the attacks. They share a drink together, Cain opting for juice as he is still a child. Claude is curious about Cain's strength at such a young age, to which Cain replies that he received tutoring during his early years. Cain asks about the mention of Ice Flame, and Claude explains it is the name of his party, where he wields a flaming sword while his wife employs ice magic. He advises Cain to find a party to tackle larger quests and rank up more rapidly, revealing his gold card, indicating he is an A-ranked adventurer. Cain admires the card, but Claude remarks that there is still room for improvement, mentioning that the first king was triple S ranked with a card rumored to be black. Claude is suddenly interrupted when his wife Lena appears, questioning why he is drinking. She introduces herself to Cain, finding him adorable and offering assistance should he encounter trouble, before dragging Claude away to continue their quest. Cain examines the quest board, noticing a request for transporting cargo. Believing it to be simple with his item box, he decides instead to seek a quest involving monster slaying. He spots a quest to defeat goblins, with no limit on how many he can vanquish, and considers it the perfect first quest. Just then, he runs into Tefana, and Gizzard explains they are heading out for training with the knights. Tefana inquires about Cain's plans, and he shares that he is about to embark on his first quest as an adventurer. Tefana insists on joining him, declaring she cannot miss her husband's inaugural adventure, and leaves the training to Gizzard. Cain attempts to escape, but Tefana seizes him and pulls him along. They venture into the forest, and Tefana delights in their time together, asking Cain about the goblins' whereabouts. Cain utilizes his search ability to detect goblins ahead and spots a man surrounded by them. They rush to assist him, and Cain casts a healing spell to aid the man. Tefana charges at the goblins, effortlessly dispatching them, but more goblins emerge. Cain enhances her strength with magic. Together, they feel as if they are fighting in perfect harmony. Tefana swiftly takes down the goblins, only to be confronted by a giant goblin. However, thanks to Cain's magic, it proves no match for her, and she slices it in half. Lost in her thoughts of their future wedding, she requests praise from Cain, but suddenly, green lizards appear. Cain instructs her to retreat with the man, urging her to leave the confrontation to him. He casts a light spell to blind the creatures before following up with an ice pillar. Massive ice pillars erupt from the ground, leaving the man bewildered, but Tefana knows it is merely Cain doing what he does. Some time later, we find Cain's tutors investigating the scene of the green lizards, only to discover a large crater left behind. Cain reports to the guild, wondering if he can submit the green lizards, even though he didn't officially take the quest. Tia is astonished by his claim, as a green lizard quest typically requires a C rank, but Cain reveals he defeated 30 of them. In disbelief, Tia rushes to inform the chief. The chief, Cedric, meets with Cain, introducing himself and mentioning the guildmaster is busy, so he will handle Cain's case. He suspects Cain may be trying to cheat the system, arguing it would be impossible for him to have slain a green lizard as a newly registered adventurer. Cain insists he did indeed defeat them, but Cedric believes he is merely a peasant attempting to defraud the guild out of reward money. Determined to punish Cain, he revokes his guild card, asserting that he does not tolerate cheats, but the guildmaster arrives unexpectedly. Cedric explains the situation, doubting Cain could have defeated 30 green lizards, but the guildmaster laughs, stating Cedric has much to learn. Cedric is incredulous that the guildmaster would side with Cain, but the guildmaster introduces his guest, Tefana. She embraces Cain, referring to him as her husband. Both Tia and Cedric are taken aback, while Cain wonders why she is present at the guild. She explains she was there to discuss countermeasures against goblins and green lizards in the city. The guildmaster notes that Cain is a baron and the hero who saved the princess, but Cedric expresses disbelief since Cain's registry form contains no such information. Cain explains that he excluded that detail, not wanting any special treatment. The guildmaster adds that if Cain marries Tefana, he will become Cedric's brother-in-law, shocking Cain to learn Tefana is related to Cedric. Cedric begs for forgiveness, and Tefana remarks that he should be executed for insulting a noble, but Cain forgives him, warning against making hasty assumptions. Cain inquires if they will accept his green lizards, and the guildmaster agrees to promote him, but Tefana insists it is insufficient. She notes Cain is stronger than her, having defeated a red dragon at just 10 years old. The guildmaster decides to elevate him to rank instead, though he states Cain will need to subdue some bandits. Tia and Cedric are incredulous at Cain's rapid promotion, and the guildmaster tells them to manage the paperwork. After they leave, the guildmaster apologizes for Cedric's behavior, but Cain reassures him it's no issue. The guildmaster admits he was concerned when he heard about his sister's engagement, but is now relieved after meeting Cain, urging him to look after his sister. Meanwhile, the gods observe Cain, laughing at the chaos he is causing. They ponder whether making him so strong was a mistake, but Xenom asserts he must grow even stronger, revealing that a being named Aaron is about to be released from his seal. He was sealed away 3 centuries ago, and the gods dread the consequences of his resurgence. They conclude that Cain must become even stronger, believing he needs to train with a specific master to reach the next level. We see Cain in bed as Sylvia rushes in, apologizing for failing to wake him, reminding him today is the academy entrance exam day. Cain hurries out the door as Sylvia continues her apologies, but he assures her not to fret as he won't be late. Once outside, he uses a teleportation spell to reach the academy. Upon checking in for the exam, he is directed to his designated room. While walking, he finds it strange not to recognize anyone on the list. Upon entering the room, he wonders if Telestia and Silk are taking exams in different rooms. The examiner enters, informing them they have 2 hours to complete the test, warning that cheaters will be removed immediately. The exam begins, focusing on basic math and writing skills, which Cain finds simple due to his previous life's knowledge. During the test, the examiner observes him relaxing, surprised when he claims to have finished in just 30 minutes. When the exam concludes, they are told to proceed to the magic assessment, which excites Cain. They move to the courtyard, where the examiner instructs them to use their strongest spell against a target. Cain wonders if he can utilize his full power, and the examiner assures him that the area is protected by a defensive barrier, permitting any magic use. He watches as a boy begins to chant, conjuring a weak fireball that surprises Cain. Another student steps up, producing a similarly feeble display, leading Cain to realize this is the typical level for 12-year-olds. Initially, he plans to use his Inferno spell, but decides against it, fearing it would cause trouble. When it's his turn, he creates a fireball that turns blue and unleashes a fire bullet spell, resulting in a massive explosion that obliterates the wall. The destruction astounds everyone, and Cain is confused since he only used a beginner-level spell. The examiner is left speechless as Cain attempts to explain himself. After assessing the damage, the examiner leads them to the swordsmanship test. They move to another section of the academy where the examiner introduces several A-ranked adventurers to assist in evaluations. Cain is surprised to see Claude, who wonders what Cain is doing there. Cain explains he is taking the entrance exam. Claude wants to be Cain's opponent, but Cain hesitates to accept. However, the examiner insists that Claude, as the highest-ranked adventurer, cannot be turned down. The two prepare to spar, with Claude instructing Cain to showcase his abilities. Cain believes Claude should be strong due to his A rank, so he activates his boost skill and begins his attack. They exchange blows at an astonishing speed, leaving the other students in disbelief. Claude is impressed with Cain, acknowledging him as stronger than the other examiners, but Cain urges him to take it easy since it's just a test. However, Claude gets carried away, activating his own boost skill, resulting in them moving even faster. Their duel is abruptly interrupted as the examiner orders them to stop, claiming they are frightening the other students. Claude acknowledges they may have gone overboard, proposing they plan a quest together sometime, although Cain hesitates, uncertain it's a good idea. The examiner concludes he has seen enough, instructing Cain to return home and await the results. Back at home, Sylvia inquires about Cain's performance. Cain assures her everything went smoothly, leading Sylvia to suggest throwing a party in celebration. Cain feels it's premature to celebrate, but his stomach growls, prompting Sylvia to rush off to prepare food. At the palace, Cain finds himself interrogated by the king regarding the damage he caused. Cain explains how the examiner allowed him to use his full power, mentioning that despite only utilizing beginner magic, it still resulted in significant destruction. The king expresses surprise at Cain's ability to wield emperor-level magic, and Cain questions if there are any areas for practice, but they firmly deny him. The king then inquires where Cain took his exam, noting that Telestra complained of not seeing him. Cain mentions checking in at the south entrance and being directed to his room. Upon hearing this, the king questions the existence of both a north and south entrance. Realizing his blunder, Cain understands the north entrance leads to the noble sector, and he had inadvertently taken the exam alongside commoners. The Duke points out that this even caused complications with the academy headmaster. In a flashback, the headmaster informs the king that there is a dilemma regarding releasing the results due to a commoner achieving a perfect score on the written exam, as well as causing destruction in the training area while contending with an A-ranked adventurer. The Duke laughs upon hearing this, noting that it could only be Cain, instructing the headmaster to release the results at the academy. As the results are revealed, Cain scans for his name. Silk calls out to him, announcing he has topped the class, with Telestia in second place and herself in third. She teases him about the destruction he caused, mentioning Telestia's anger at not seeing him, causing Cain to worry he may be in trouble. Suddenly, he spots his sister Rain guiding other students. She rushes over, ecstatic to see him. Rain expresses pride in Cain for being the top of his class and wishes him luck on his upcoming speech, explaining that the top scorer traditionally delivers a speech at the entrance ceremony. Cain wishes Telestia could take on that role instead, but Rain insists he has no choice. Returning home, Cain finds Sylvia overjoyed upon learning he passed, insisting they celebrate with enough food to feed 100 guests. She rushes off, and while Cain thinks her excitement is excessive, he feels it's a good reason to be joyful. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Cain is pleased to see his parents have come to support him. He joins Telestia and Silk, charming them as they admire how cute he looks in his uniform. As the ceremony commences, other students are envious, wondering who he is while glaring at his position between the two girls. The headmaster calls Cain to deliver his speech. He introduces himself, acknowledging his exam mix-up while expressing eagerness to befriend everyone, hoping they can all get along, prompting cheers from the students. The king emerges to congratulate the students, remarking on the presence of certain irregular students, causing Cain to feel the king is cautioning him. When they commence their first class, the homeroom teacher introduces herself as Elka. She encourages them to contemplate their futures and select their fields of study. Cain wishes to pursue adventuring, but the girls object. Telestia argues that since Cain is already a baron, he needs to learn more about noble affairs. Upset, Cain learns from Silk that he can choose multiple courses. Thus, he resolves to study nobility, adventuring, and magic. Curious about the girls' choices, Telestia reveals she will study nobility and internal affairs. When Cain inquires about her interest in internal affairs, she expresses a desire to assist him in managing his domain. Silk opts for nobility and commerce, hoping to be useful to him in the future. After leading class, Cain spots some bullies harassing a girl. Noticing her ears, he realizes it's Parma from the item shop. The bullies turn out to be Habit and his gang, ridiculing her for being a beast and claiming she doesn't belong in their class. Cain intervenes, asserting that nobles and commoners are equal within the school. Habit remains unconcerned, but Sin recognizes he's speaking to Cain, recalling their earlier encounter. The boys question Cain's loyalty to a commoner, considering him a noble himself, but Cain clarifies he is simply standing up for a friend. Habit threatens to involve his father to harm Parma's family, but the girls approach, forcing the boys to kneel and apologize. They hastily apologize to Parma before fleeing. Parma thanks Cain for his help, but the girls suddenly interrogate him about his relationship with her, leading Cain to kneel for a chat. He becomes anxious they might form an alliance, but a voice beckons him to visit the library. Curious, Cain opens the door, only to find himself transported to another space, where a man asks if he wants coffee. Cain demands to know the man's identity, astonished at the presence of coffee in this realm. The man introduces himself as Yuya, the first king, addressing Cain by his former name, Kazuya. Cain recalls the book he had read, but notes it was written over 300 years ago. Yuya chuckles, inviting Cain to check his stats. When Cain opens his status window, he is stunned to find he has obtained the title of God of Creation. Yuya explains that they exist in a world he crafted, thus he is regarded as a god, maintaining his appearance even after 3 centuries. He elaborates on how he communicated with Xenom, indicating the other gods desire Yuya's assistance with Cain's training. Cain feels he is already sufficiently strong, but Yuya urges him to take a cookie from him. As Cain attempts to do so, Yuya easily halts him, asserting that he still has a long way to go. Cain questions why he needs to grow stronger, and Yuya reveals he must confront Aaron, the evil god. He recounts that 300 years ago, Aaron compelled people worldwide to engage in conflict through an oracle, instilling distrust and inciting violence among them. Alongside his companions, Yuya managed to seal Aaron away. However, the seal has weakened and Aaron's resurrection is imminent. Cain asks why they cannot simply seal him again, to which Yuya explains that since becoming a god, he can no longer interfere directly in the world, similar to the other gods. Yuya adds that Cain's past life holds significance, but they suddenly teleport to the ocean. Yuya tosses him a sword, asserting he will divulge more information if Cain completes his training. He provides Cain with a compass that will guide him back to their previous location. Cain is informed he must reach at least level 600 to have a fighting chance against Aaron. Cain worries it will take ages, considering he is currently around level 300, and expresses concern about missing school, but Yuya clarifies that 1 year in this world equals just 1 day in the other. Wishing Cain luck, Yuya vanishes, leaving Cain with no alternative but to begin heading back to the house. Enters the forest, he is immediately besieged by various deadly creatures. Meanwhile, in the other world, Celestia and Silk visit Cain's mansion. Concerned for Cain's well-being due to his absence from school, Sylvia begins to fret, fearing he might be in danger. However, Celestia remains confident in him, deciding to stay and wait for his return. We find Cain being captured by a beast, utterly fatigued, yet he manages to unleash magic against it before collapsing. It's revealed he has been in the forest for several months, and he questions whether he will ever return. Suddenly, he hears a cry and instinctively rises, dragging himself toward the sound, discovering an injured beast lying helplessly. He contemplates ending its suffering but recalls his desire to protect others. Summoning all the magic within him, he heals the beast, only to lose consciousness in the process. The beast safeguards him from other monsters, and upon waking, it bounds onto him, licking his face. Realizing the beast is also alone, Cain invites it to join him, naming it Haku. With Haku's companionship, he maintains his sanity, reminding himself to persevere, as he has something precious to protect. After some time, he finally returns to the house, where Yuya welcomes him back, commenting on how much he has grown. 4 years have passed. Yuya also notes Haku is a holy beast and suggests they form a contract. Cain tries this, and Haku vanishes, with Yuya explaining he can now summon Haku whenever he desires. Yuya introduces Cain to his next instructor, Duran. Duran informs Cain he is still insufficiently strong because Aaron is more powerful than Yuya, who is stronger than Duran. Thus, Cain must first defeat Duran. Cain activates his boost skill, but Duran evades his attack and knocks him out with a single blow. Upon regaining consciousness, Cain finds himself cared for by Duran and meets his wife, Ruri. They own a pet dragon named Jean, and Cain expresses excitement to befriend it, but Haku jumps in protectively, seemingly disapproving of the dragon. Joining them for dinner, Cain breaks into tears, overwhelmed with emotion at tasting real food for the first time in 4 years. Simultaneously, we observe Celestia and Silk baking. They worry about Cain but are learning to bake, wishing to bring him joy upon his return. Cain continues to train with Duran, facing defeat daily. After a year of training, Cain remains bested, and Duran questions how he plans to defeat Aaron. Cain reflects on his conversation with Yuya, who informed him that Aaron once served as the god of amusement in the previous world. Cain is stunned to learn there used to be 8 gods. Yuya explains that Aaron employed an oracle to force the world into a deadly game. Should he return, this game will reignite, ensnaring everyone Cain holds dear. Motivated by this knowledge, Cain perseveres through his training. Yuya also reveals that Aaron is connected to Cain's past life, having murdered his parents. It's unveiled that Cain's parents, Seiya and Megami, were also victims of a car accident and were summoned as heroes to this world. The gods were unable to directly intervene, so they entrusted Cain, Seiya, and Megami with stopping Eren, equipping them with an orb capable of sealing him away. During their confrontation with Eren, Megami's magic proves ineffective against him. Yuya and Seiya charge at Eren, managing to inflict a wound, but Eren retaliates with devastating magic, killing Megami. Seiya activates his ultimate skill to confront Eren, but he too falls to a fatal blow. Taking advantage of the distraction, Yuya manages to seal Eren but at the cost of Seiya's life. As Cain reflects on his commitment to protect those he loves, he finds the strength to overcome Duran, finally completing his training. Cain visits his parents' graves, and Yuya mentions they always worried about him. Cain expresses gratitude to Yuya for caring for his parents, and when offered a cookie, he manages to grab it this time, prompting Yuya to acknowledge Cain's growth. Yuya suggests having coffee together, but Cain expresses eagerness to return to his world. Yuya notes Cain's changed appearance and uses his power to revert him back. Yuya advises Cain to look after Haku. Duran suggests taking Jean to experience the other world as well, prompting Cain to form a contract with Jean. Cain thanks both Yuya and Duran for their care, preparing to return to his world. Before departing, Yuya tosses Cain a sword, instructing him to present it to the king, then Cain teleports away. Reappearing at his mansion, Cain is greeted joyfully by the girls. He apologizes for their worries, but Celestia assures him they had faith in his return, even learning to bake cookies for his arrival. They warmly welcome him home, and Cain savors their presence, relishing the cookies. Cain meets with the king and explains that he encountered Yuya in another world. The king finds this hard to believe at first, but Cain shows the sword that Yuya gave him, which the king immediately recognizes, so he accepts the story as true. The king reads a letter from Yuya and learns that Cain was trained under his guidance. Cain recounts his training ordeal, where he was left to survive in a forest full of vicious monsters, enduring constant beatings for 5 years. The king is shocked, wondering how Cain trained for 5 whole years, but the duke finds it as amusing as ever. The duke adds that during Cain's absence, the guild was looking for him, as he hasn't taken on any quests since reaching a rank, and may have to cancel his registration. The king grows concerned upon hearing this and heads straight to the guild. At the guild, he meets the guildmaster and asks for an explanation, learning that Cain was required to subdue some bandits after reaching a rank. Cain explains he's been busy attending the academy, but the guildmaster reminds him that there is a time limit for completing the quest, or else his registration will be cancelled. Seeing no other choice, Cain accepts the quest, and the guildmaster briefs him on a group of 10 bandits causing trouble on the road to the capital, assuring Cain that he should handle it easily, given his strength. Cain teleports to the road, casts a flying spell, and scans from above to locate the bandits. Spotting them robbing a carriage, he quickly descends to intervene, only to find his tutors, Nina and Melly, escorting the carriage, and their client is Parma's father. Seeing that Melly is injured, he swiftly heals her with magic. The bandits mock him, mistaking him for just a child, but Cain decides to make them regret underestimating him. The bandits charge, but Cain defeats them with minimal effort, barely touching them. One leaps at him, but Cain sends him flying. After dispatching the rest of the bandits, he notes how difficult it is to hold back his full strength, while the girls marvel at his power. With all bandits captured, Melly questions his sudden appearance, and he explains he's on a subjugation quest. The girls are stunned, as such quests are typically reserved for C-ranked adventurers and higher. Cain reveals he's already an A rank, and the girls can't believe he bypassed the C and B ranks entirely. The bandits are taken back to town in a cage, and the group stops by Tamani's item shop to deliver Parma's father safely. Parma is thrilled to see Cain and surprised by the bandits, musing about how it's supposed to be a day off school, yet he's still hard at work. She reflects on his busy life as a baron, and Melly, shocked by his title, wonders if she should address him more formally. Cain assures them he'll always see them as his mentors and insists they continue calling him by his name. Melly remarks on how much Cain has matured, noting he seems more like an adult, but Cain slips away, reminding them he has to report back to the guild. Cain returns to the guild, where Tia is surprised he completed the quest so quickly. As she informs the guildmaster, some adventurers begin harassing the girls. One man tries to grab Melly but is stopped by Cain. The men recognize him from a previous encounter, panic, and flee. Claude arrives to find Cain with Melly, who reveals she's his younger sister. Cain is shocked by the connection, and they all sit down for a drink together. Claude inquires about their mission, and Melly explains how Cain saved them, mentioning his rank. Claude is astonished, considering Cain's recent registration, but remembers how Cain kept up with him in their mock fight. Melly wonders about Cain's strength, which makes him uneasy since he can't reveal his training with the gods. However, Melly recalls him defeating a red dragon even as a child, concluding he's always been strong. Claude, impressed, notes that red dragons are S-rank creatures, and the girls show off the magical bags Cain made for them. Lena eagerly asks how much the bags can hold, and Melly admits she's never managed to fill it, though Cain claimed it could fit an entire mansion. Lena, envious, asks Cain for one, and he promises to make her one too. Lena thanks him and falls asleep, and Claude remarks on her poor tolerance for alcohol. Cain then remembers he's missed an entire week of school, and realizes he needs to avoid further absences. Claude is curious as to why Cain attends school despite being a baron, but Cain insists there's still much he needs to learn. Nina, moved by his sincerity, offers him a hug, but Cain quickly slips away. At that moment, Tia appears, mentioning that the academy's instructor was injured, and Claude volunteers to help Cain. The next day at the academy, Cain attends his magic class where they are practicing their spells on the targets. Cain gets excited, wanting to try out the new spells he learned from Yuya. However, the teacher calls him out, telling him he isn't allowed to use any attacking spells because he previously ended up destroying the academy's barrier with his beginner magic. Cain can't believe it, and his friends watch on, thinking he doesn't fit in with the rest of his class, so they come up with a plan to help him. In Cain's adventuring class, the teacher informs the students that their regular instructor is injured and introduces Claude and the others as guest instructors. The students recognize Claude and Lena, and Claude asks them to take out their guild cards, revealing that all the students have bronze cards, as they are newly registered. Claude encourages Cain to show off his gold card, but Cain hesitates, fearing it would isolate him further. Instead, he pretends to have forgotten his card. The class moves outdoors, and Claude starts training the students one by one. Cain is eager to show his abilities, but Claude continues to focus on the other students, leading Cain to feel ignored. This is part of Claude's plan. They aim to demonstrate their strength first, and when Cain is eventually able to keep up, he will impress the others. Cain grows anxious while waiting, and when another student tells him to get in line, he sees Claude defeat all the other students, leaving Cain as the last to go. Just as they begin to fight, the bell rings, signaling that time is up. Cain is disappointed, but Claude promises to fight him next time, although Cain's teacher mentions the school's budget constraints after the damage Claude caused previously. All the students thank Claude and Lena for their training, but Cain is left feeling dejected for not getting a turn. Frustrated, he goes on a rampage through the forest and encounters a dragon, which he defeats effortlessly. He then unleashes fire, causing a massive explosion, leading guards to believe they are under attack from the Prince of Darkness. They sound the alarm, and Garm rushes to investigate. After blowing off some steam, Cain teleports home, leaving behind his handkerchief. When his father arrives, he finds only a massive hole and is shocked to see Cain's handkerchief. The next day, Cain is summoned by the king, who informs him about the incident his father discovered. They speculate it might be the work of the Prince of Darkness, and while discussing preparations with other countries, Cain admits it was him who caused the destruction. The king reprimands him, and Cain faces a lecture from his father as well. Meanwhile, in a distant cave, a fragment of Aaron is picked up by a goblin and then swallowed by a dragon, which becomes possessed. Aaron, regaining some power, vows revenge on the other gods. At the academy, Cain's class learns about summoning magic. The teacher calls him out, and he initially thinks he is being told to study alone, but she informs him he can participate since they aren't practicing attack magic. Cain is excited as the teacher introduces their instructor Grat, a mage from the palace. Grat explains there are 2 types of summoning magic, forming a bond with a monster and summoning a monster from a magic circle. He hands out talismans for practice. The students begin summoning various creatures, with one student managing to summon a giant beast that refuses to form a contract. Grat praises the boy for summoning such a creature, noting he lacked the magic power to make it submit. After the other students finish, Grat calls Cain to take his turn. Cain prepares to channel all his magic into the circle but worries about summoning something chaotic like he did in the past. Grat reassures him, saying the monster will simply disappear if no contract is formed. Cain channels all his magic, but Grat starts to panic as the overwhelming magic blows Cain away. A demon appears, identifying himself as the Prince of Darkness. Cain panics and casts Flash to blind everyone. The demon checks Cain's status and approaches him, only to submit after seeing Cain's strength, offering to become his underling. Cain is surprised, and the demon introduces himself as Seth, saying he can be summoned whenever Cain wishes. Seth disappears, and when Grat asks about the demon, Cain lies, claiming he didn't form a contract. Grat accepts Cain's explanation, but he reports the incident to the king. The king interrogates Cain, who is forced to admit he summoned the Prince of Darkness, causing panic because of the potential devastation. Cain insists he only put his magic into the circle. Grat wonders about Cain's magic level, and the king thinks it's due to the training he received from the first king. The king requests to see Cain's status and warns Grat to keep it confidential. When Cain opens his status window, they are shocked to see he now holds the title of demigod with immeasurable status. The king contemplates the implications of Cain's power, and Cain requests they treat him as normal. The king promotes Cain to Viscount, granting him a town and announcing his engagement to the princess. Back home, Sylvia congratulates Cain on his promotion, and he mentions the town will be near the capital. Sylvia suggests they celebrate, but Colin arrives with news of an onslaught in the forest. Cain immediately heads back to Gracia and meets with his brother, who explains there has been a rise in attacks by savage monsters. He recalls a past onslaught and, noticing similarities, expresses concern about another occurrence. Cain decides to investigate the forest, but his brother warns him of the dangers. Cain reassures him by showing his gold card and reminds him of his past victory over a red dragon. Grateful, his brother allows him to help. Cain goes to the Adventurers Guild, where the clerk initially looks down on him, but is shocked by his gold card. Another clerk named Rudy explains the rising savagery of the monsters and the potential for an onslaught. Millie and Nina arrive at the guild, mentioning they responded to a call for higher-ranked adventurers and were planning to meet Claude and Lena. Rudy advises Cain against going alone, suggesting he find someone to accompany him. Cain summons Haku and Jean to join him, and they set off together. As Cain traverses the forest, he feels he's being watched. He defeats several monsters, but the feeling persists. Summoning Seth, the Prince of Darkness asks who is disturbing him but quickly kneels upon seeing Cain. Cain explains his concerns, and Seth senses a powerful presence nearby that the monsters are drawn to. To learn more, Seth summons his servant Dalmatia, who is surprised to meet Cain. Seth introduces Cain as their new master, which amazes Dalmatia. Cain insists he's not a god. Dalmatia uses his skill to spread creatures throughout the forest, causing chaos among the monsters. Cain takes them out easily, impressing Dalmatia. He decides to let Seth and Dalmatia handle the investigation while he returns to the guild. Upon his return, Cain's friends are shocked to see S-ranked monsters, joined by Claude and Lena. They express concern about the source of the monsters, and Cain suggests there are likely stronger monsters deeper in the forest. Meanwhile, Dalmatia senses an intimidating presence warning them to stay back, but Seth views it as a challenge. Aaron senses the approach of the enemy, and as they arrive, a massive horde of monsters awaits in the forest. Seeing this, Aaron decides to initiate his plan, sending the monsters to attack. Seth swiftly teleports to alert Cain, and the earth trembles. Alarms ring out as Seth informs Cain that the assault has begun. Cain instructs Rudy to notify his brother and asks Claude to gather the adventurers to defend the town. Though Cain intends to return to the forest, Rudy warns him of the danger. Cain reassures them, saying he has powerful allies, which touches Seth to be acknowledged as a friend. They set out, but Tefana suddenly arrives, clinging to Cain and explaining that his father issued an emergency command. Tefana wishes to accompany him into the forest, but Cain asks her to stay and defend their hometown. She assures him she'll handle it, and Cain hastily heads off with Seth. Meanwhile, Dalmatia is already engaging the monsters, seemingly enjoying the fight. A dragon emerges behind him, but Seth swiftly eliminates it, and Cain casts Inferno upon the monsters. They turn toward the source, preparing to confront Aaron, who seems to be waiting. Seth tells Cain to go ahead while he manages the monsters. When Cain expresses concern, Seth assures him, planning to summon his own underlings for assistance, though he warns it may damage the forest. Cain tells him not to overdo it, but Seth says he should worry about himself instead, and Cain moves on. Back in town, Tefana organizes the defenses as Nina detects a massive wave of monsters approaching. Millie decides to head into the forest, concerned that even someone as strong as Cain might need help. Nina agrees to join, and Claude and Lena, unwilling to let them go alone, follow. Seth summons his underlings, his 4 demon generals, who assess the situation, and Seth mentions he's helping a friend. Curious, they wonder who would prompt Seth's assistance, and Dalmatia reveals that Seth now serves a new master. Hearing Seth has a new contract, they are stunned, wondering who it could be. Dalmatia describes Cain as a demigod, chosen by the divine. Stunned, the generals follow Seth's orders to assist with the monster control. In the forest, Cain fights off as many monsters as possible, but their numbers are overwhelming. Suddenly, a flame attack comes his way, but Cain counters it with his own spell. A black dragon appears, and Cain recognizes it as Aaron. Aaron laments his inability to fully revive but summons more monsters to attack the town. Cain demands he stop, but Aaron laughs, calling it a game to see if humans can survive the horde. Elsewhere, Cain's friends spot the demon generals fighting monsters and guess they must be Cain's allies. The demons struggle with the onslaught, and Seth concedes they'll have to rely on human support. Aaron notices Cain's eyes, recognizing them as similar to those who sealed him long ago, and Cain realizes he means his parents. Aaron unleashes a breath attack, but Cain dodges, retaliating with Inferno. Though his attack lands, Aaron mocks him, calling it weak. Cain realizes he must escalate his power, but Aaron attacks before he can. Cain summons Haku and Jean, and together, they knock Aaron down, though Haku is struck by Aaron's tail, and Aaron aims his breath at him. Cain's friends fight valiantly against the monsters but grow weary and overwhelmed. Claude struggles with a massive beast, but Tefana and her knights arrive, slaying it and aiding the group. Haku takes a hit from Aaron's breath, but Jean shields him. As Aaron continues his assault, Cain steps up to protect them. Annoyed, Aaron is faced with Cain's determination, who thinks of everyone he wishes to protect. Cain activates his father's ultimate technique, and Aaron recognizes it as Emperor-level magic. Cain fires his attack, clashing with Aaron. A brilliant beam of light explodes, visible from afar, as Cain unleashes everything to protect his allies. However, Haku and Jean suddenly bite Cain, confusing him. Seth and Dalmatia appear, informing Cain he has overdone it, revealing that Aaron has been completely obliterated. Cain realizes the battle is over, with the remaining monsters retreating, leaving the town safe. Cain celebrates with his friends, but he faces reprimand from the king. The king questions him about the beam of light, visible across the kingdom, as people believed it signaled a divine appearance. Cain explains he used Emperor-level magic against Aaron, but the king chastises him for wielding such destructive power so casually. A ceremony is held for Cain, promoting him to Viscount and granting him the domain of Duranthal. Afterward, Tefana warns him that Duranthal is a challenging region where previous nobles failed due to the Adventurers Guild's dominance. Telestia considers protesting to her father, but Cain is optimistic, excited by the prospect of building a new town. They believe he'll succeed, though they caution him against going overboard. They depart for Duranthal. However, Cain's actions stir up trouble as a guard reports his activities to the king. Apparently, Cain immediately visited the Adventurers Guild, where he overpowered the adventurers who tried to greet him. Later, at the tavern, he defended a girl by kicking out her attackers, leading to his arrest. The king is shocked by the report, while the duke finds it amusing. Cain tells Telestia and Silk about Duranthal, but Seth arrives, pleading for help. Seth explains he was thrown out by his wife due to an infidelity, and his wife soon appears. She respectfully greets Cain, then asks his opinion of Seth's actions. Cain criticizes Seth, remarking that with such a beautiful wife, he had no reason to stray, and the demoness is flattered. Seth warns Cain that women change post-marriage, prompting a scolding from Telestia and Silk. The king receives further reports of Cain's exploits. It turns out he dismantled a dark guild, then constructed a wall, and even an entire castle. Telestia marvels at the grand structure, wondering how her father will react, as everyone advises Cain, once again, not to overdo things. If you like this anime, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because there will be many similar anime videos here.